City of Lawrence Common Council. Today is Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, and the meeting is now called to order. Can everyone please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and prayer? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, I pray that you lead us and guide us through this meeting, that you fill our minds and our hearts with your wisdom and your love, that we may make the best decisions for our city. We pray these things in your blessed name. Amen. Amen. Okay, we have a quorum. We have Councilor Chevlot and Councilor Freeman joining via Zoom, and it looks like all councilors, with the exception of Councilor Russell, are present this evening. Next, we have comments of council members and special recognitions or resolutions. Do we have any?
Madam President, if I may, I would like to thank the street department for filling the potholes on Eldridge and Bogey Drive. I would also like to make an announcement regarding Congressperson Victoria Spartz, who will be conducting a listening session on Saturday, November 20th, 2021, right here in the Lawrence Government Center. It will be at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. She will also conduct another in the Sheridan Community Center at 300 East 6th Street, Sheridan, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors?
Madam President, I have a couple.
Go right ahead, Councilor Freeman.
Okay. Someone reported that we had some homeless people putting up camp on the side of Walmart and Goodwill. And I want to send a great big thank you for Captain Cantrell for being on top of it, because he's already got things in motion, what to happen next. And then as far as the panhandlers, we had a report that there was a panhandler on Pendleton Pike and Sunnyside right there at the light. And we have never had that out here in Lawrence. So I hope the police department or the code enforcer does something about that before it gets out of hand. And then I had another former counselor was complaining about the weeds along the medium on Pendleton Pike. And she has called Scott Samsbury about this concern. And I do know that Pendleton Pike is a state road, so we would have to figure out how we're going to work this out with the state of Indiana to keep the weeds and things out of the sewers and along the medium. And I also had a meeting with Dan Parker and Tim Joyce about the 56th Street Road. They said this will cost $4 million to get this fixed. And they wanted me to ask the administration, do we get gasoline tax on this? And if we do, I wanted to inquire about how much gasoline tax we get on this that's put aside for the city of Lawrence. And that's all.
Any other councilors?
Madam President.
Yes, Councilor Wells.
Thank you. Here recently, there was a news story, I think it was Channel 6, I think, about a gentleman operating a car repair shop in a residential district. That was in my, district, and I just, for the record, want the people that have called me to complain about these businesses that are operating in the residential areas, that it's been noted, it has been reported to the administration, and just for the record, I just want everyone to realize, the citizens, that that's just about the end of our authority. We really don't have any authority to do anything other than just pass the complaint along to the administration and hopefully actions to be taken. To the people that own the restaurants that are in my district, about all the food vendors between Franklin Road and Post Road, anywhere from 6 to 8 of them. That has been reported as well. My understanding that many of them are not permitted or have the proper licensing or what have you. I have not heard back as to what, if anything, is going to be done or will be done about all these food vendors. They pop up, and like I said, I've counted anywhere from 6 to 9 of them. So once again, just for the record, we can report it and turn it over to the administration, but we really don't have any authority. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Okay, seeing none. Next on the agenda is signing of vouchers, approval of claims, and authorization of payment. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a couple comments regarding the vouchers before a motion.
Okay.
Just wanted to acknowledge a couple of things that the council has done, and I apologize, I'm having to look at tiny writing on my phone. But as we're going in tonight with these approval of these vouchers, we'll have approved close to $100,000 in public safety equipment over the last 30 or 45 days. Tonight, we're going to be approving some medical or municipal emergency services equipment supplies for our firefighters. And if you recall, at the last meeting, we approved about $70,000 in body cams for our police officers. And tonight, we're going to be adding an additional approximately $3,200 to the uniform supplies for our police officers. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Also in tonight's vouchers, there's a large purchase for some play equipment at one of our parks. That is over the normal expenditure, but some of this money is grant money, and this expenditure is matching. We have to provide funding in advance, and then we get the Parks Department gets a significant discount on that purchase. So that is something that we absolutely should do and approve for the Parks Department. And with that, and I gave some notice to our controller. There were 2 vouchers that I had a question about, and I'd like to hold those until our December 6th meeting. So I apologize, I don't remember, Chris, what the phrasing is supposed to be, but I'd like to make a motion to approve the vouchers, but withholding Taft services. There's 2 areas where they're on the vouchers. And then also Charles C. Brandt Construction.
Do you know the amounts on those?
Yes, so Charles C. Brandt is $3,872. Taft is in 2 positions, 2 places. One is for $3,000. And one second, I scroll through here. The other is for $39,000.
So 39,000 and 3,000, and then Charles Brandt is 3,872?
In fact, the other one's $39,122.50.
39,122.50?
Yes.
Okay, so there's been a motion made to approve the vouchers and hold or exclude, with the exception of 2 vouchers, 3 total, 2 for Taft and 1 for Charles Brandt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Rusamora. Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none. Roll call vote. Counselor Denning?
Yes.
Counselor Giles?
Yes.
Counselor Chevlot?
No.
Counselor Freeman?
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield,
Yes.
Counselor Russo-Moroff,
Yes.
Counselor Wells,
Yes.
Counselor Chavis, yes. Motion carries 7-1.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I add one more comment?
Sure, go right ahead.
And just as an explanation, and I left this off in my comments, if you see down on the agenda, we're going to discuss the contract for Taft after approving the vouchers. It just didn't seem reasonable to approve vouchers for something we hadn't approved the contract for yet. So there's a process that we wanted to follow and to be pro forma with that part. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our finance chair. Okay, next on the agenda, we have unfinished business. Proposal number 10, 2021.
Proposal number 10, 2021, introduced by Counselor Wells, a proposal for an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, amending the Lawrence Municipal Code regarding requirements for city towing providers.
Okay, proposal number 10, 2021 is still in Code Committee. Next, we have consideration of council appointment to the Lawrence Plan Commission. That is tabled now. Next, we have resolution number 17, 2021.
Resolution number 17, 2021, introduced by Counselor Chavis, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, approving the sale of real property located at 7750 Oak Landon Road.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, do you mind if I have a minute of discussion?
After our motion
Okay.
and our second. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll make a motion, given that passed out of committee, to approve.
Okay, motion, Counselor Chevlot.
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Denning. Any discussion? Counselor Denning, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, and I think Counselor Chevlot said exactly what I was going to say. This passed out of committee tonight, 4-0. Mr. Salisbury is in the audience if any of us wanted to discuss the property. There was a conversation about could this be a city park, a pocket park, if you will, and my understanding is it's majority of it's wetlands, and with some IDEM restrictions, it would be very difficult for the city to convert this land to a park, and we have no other use for it.
All right. Any other counselors?
Madam President, may I ask a question?
Yes, Counselor Mora.
Do we know the zoning on this property?
Scott, you want to come forward on that?
Hi, Scott Salisbury, Lawrence Utilities, and that, I believe, is Zone DA, dwelling agriculture. But don't quote me on that. I don't have my paperwork in front of me.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Salisbury while he's up here in front of us?
Madam President, if I may. Scott, how big a property is that?
I'll say 3 to 4 acres, maybe.
Seems like that's, what, $65,000 was the appraisal for that much land in a very desirable area, wouldn't you think?
Well, the majority of that property is in the floodplain, and so development of that parcel is going to be very restricted. And when I talked to Councilor Denny about the development of a park there, clearly the only play area is along Oak Landon Road, which is dangerous. There's very little parking. You have the wetlands, which is a water hazard for small children. You have the mosquito problem. I mean, there really is no good use for this property from a city standpoint. And that's why the Utility Service Board wants to divest of that property and get rid of it.
Could it not be if someone tore the old garage down, build a new house there?
I don't know. I suppose you could, but it's just got to go through all the permitting process and all that. I don't know, with the existing setbacks and all that, that's maybe there that apply. Those are not anything I have knowledge of. All I know is the utility no longer wants the property.
And one other quick question. It said that there were maintenance costs. I mean, what costs is the city incurring in keeping it? Just mowing the grass?
You don't literally want the building falling down. I mean, you have to do a certain amount of maintenance just to keep it looking presentable and stuff like that. But those are costs that we no longer wish to incur for a property that we have no interest in.
So you have to pay for insurance, and you have to pay for mowing
Right,
and all the things to
utilities
upkeep
and
the
all that
property.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, if I could just ask one question that might help clarify. Do you know when the city first used the property and when we last used it?
The original use of this property was back in the probably the early to mid 80s when it was developed as a water plant. That the requirement was that the structure be made to look like a house, so it blended in with the surrounding area, which was starting to develop. It was a stopgap water plant, temporary, never intended to be permanent until the Indian Lake plant came online. When Indian Lake came online, then this plant was shuttered, and since then it is just basically sat. It's been used for storage. The LPD had their motorcycles in there for a while. Of course, those have been moved to the new facility, and there's just really no reason to keep paying for a property that has no value or no use for the city.
So for those that might not know, what year did the Indian Lake plant come online?
About 1993, 94.
Your last usage was almost 30 years ago?
Yes.
And also, the proceeds for the sale of this property will go back into the utility, correct?
Yes, we'll put that into our capital improvements.
We could use that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Counselor Denning.
Yes.
Counselor Giles.
Yes.
Counselor Chevlot.
Yes.
Counselor Freeman.
Yes.
Counselor Wells.
Yes.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
No.
Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Counselor Chavis. Yes. Motion carries 8-1. Thank you.
7-1.
7-1. I'm sorry. We're one counselor short. 7-1. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, we have proposal number 16, 2021.
Proposal number 16, 2021, introduced by Councilor Denny, a proposal for an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Florence, Indiana, to transfer unused and unencumbered funds to the City Rainy Day Fund pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-8.5-1.
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Motion, Counselor Denny.
I'll second it.
Second, Counselor Wells. Counselor Denny, can you give us an overview on that one?
Sure. So this was also just heard in the Finance Committee, and it was approved unanimously by the Finance Committee. Basically, if we have any funds that are left over after all of our encumbrances and all of our bills are paid, a portion will be put in the rainy day fund. We currently have a rainy day fund with a $0 balance in it. So this is sort of to shore up the city's books and make sure that large retirements come along with our pension plans, another 05, another 08 incident occurs, that the funds are there and the city's financially stable throughout those periods.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor Denny.
Yes.
Counselor Giles.
Yes.
Counselor Chevlot.
Yes.
You have to come on video for your vote to count, Counselor Chevlot.
Yes.
So we know it's really you.
Counselor Freeman.
Yes.
Counselor Wells.
Yes.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Counselor Chavis. Yes, motion carries 8-0. Okay, next on the agenda is Resolution Number 19, 2021.
Resolution number 19, 2021, introduced by Councilor Chevlot, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, approving the issuance of stormwater revenue bonds of the City of Lawrence Stormwater Management District and matters related thereto.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, which was passed out of the Finance Committee.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion. And I think we're going to have Mr. Bosma come forward and just give an overview. And before he does that, if Councilor Denning can just sort of summarize the finance discussion and recommendation of resolution number 19.
Sure. So the bonds, as you said, Mr. Bosman gave a presentation, and we'll discuss here in a second, I'm sure, the bonds and the bonding process. Part of the discussion tonight was the expense of the 20-year bonds versus the actual cost of the projects, and how many funds will be left over after we within the stormwater fund itself, after we issue the bonds and complete the projects. Are we able to complete project number 13, 14, 15, and so on after these bonds are issued? There was some discussion regarding other alternative financing. And ultimately, though, to get it before the full council, it was passed with a 3-1 vote. I was the dissenting vote, bringing it forward.
Okay, great. Can you come forward, Mr. Bosma?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Just for a brief overview, you'll recall about a year ago, the council acted to remove the City of Lawrence from the Marion County Stormwater Management District and reestablish actually, your own Stormwater Management District, which operates under a 3-member board appointed by mayoral appointments. I'd like to report to you that it's become very successful. The board's doing a good job. The city engineer's been very responsive, working together with the board, and I just feel really good about it. So I should have introduced myself first. Pardon me. Brian Bosma, the chairman of the Municipal Practice Group with Kroger Gardis and Regas, 111 Monument Circle, Indianapolis 46204. I also serve as counsel to the Stormwater District Board. Before you tonight is resolution number 19, which is the last step in a bonding process begun by the Stormwater Management Board in October. They conducted on October 5 a meeting at which they adopted a declaratory resolution declaring the need to issue these bonds to address projects in the City of Lawrence that had been the subject of longstanding complaints. And then a notice was published on October 25th. A public hearing was conducted in this room. After which the Stormwater Board adopted a confirmatory resolution confirming the need to issue the bonds, and then adopted a bond resolution as well. The last step in that process is because they're a non-elected board, Indiana law requires the fiscal body of the unit that is issuing the bonds to approve the issuance of the bonds. A couple of notes in addition to questions that were asked at the Finance Committee. These bonds are not obligations of the City of Lawrence. They are obligations of the district, payable solely out of stormwater fees, which Lawrence now receives. They don't go to the Marion County Stormwater District to get some project out here. Those fees come to you, come to the city, the district actually, and then the district determines how they are spent. Last year, this year, fees will approximate $2 million. Be a little bit less than that, but pretty close to $2 million. The first $350,000 of that has to be paid back to the Marion County Stormwater District by statute to cover the portion of indebted outstanding obligations for Marion County when you left the district. So approximately $1.6 million received per year. The bonds before you, and I'm not going to speak on the projects, the city engineer is prepared to do that, and he has a consultant here. If you have specific questions about those projects, they have a presentation they can give either on all of them or individual projects. But it will create, the bonds will create a construction fund of approximately $11 million. About $805,000 will be used for debt service reserve, which will be required to sell the bonds. And there'll be less than $200,000 in issuance costs. That's actually estimated a little high. It'll be more along the order of $135,000 in that area. So it will create about $11 million to fund the projects that are there. We're using a very, at London Whitty's recommendation, the financial advisor on the bonds, we're using a very efficient process for marketing the bonds. They will be marketed to bank purchasers, and that will be through a solicitation of quote process, not the long public bid process, but they will be quoted to multiple banks. Multiple banks have already been contacted and expressed interest in receiving the request for quotes when it's issued. And that will happen before the end of the year, of course, subject to the approval of the council. With that, I'm happy to answer questions about the financial aspects here or questions regarding the bond process or issuance. Sri, the city engineer, I'm sure would be happy to answer questions about the individual projects.
Any questions for Mr. Bosma while he's up here?
I do have a question.
Whitfield?
Thank you. Can you give us a projection of what a full year of being pulled out of the Marion County finance would come into the stormwater?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking, but the city will receive approximately $1.6 million per year. The city engineer plans on about half of that, maybe on the order of $600,000 or $700,000 being used for upkeep, maintenance, ongoing projects, and then approximately the illustration that's been created, approximately $800,000 per year would be used to service the debt service on the bonds. So less than half of the available funds. The board could have been very aggressive and requested the council approve a bond issue of approximately twice the size, and it would still be funded out of the stormwater funds received, but there would be very little room for maintenance and any unexpected needs. So they've kept it below half of the available stormwater funds per year. The other thing I didn't state, I did to the finance committee, these bonds are not an obligation of the city. The city is not obligated to pay them. The stormwater district alone is obligated to pay these and pledges with your approval the stormwater fees, which the city now receives for that purpose. Did I answer your question, Counselor?
Yes.
One of those. Okay, thank you.
So maybe, Mr. Bosma, you could help him understand, though. It's highly unlikely, but in the event that there was default on the debt service payment, would be responsible for it.
The stormwater district would be, and all revenues in possession of the stormwater district would be pledged to satisfy any default. So the revenues of the stormwater district are essentially the fees that come in every year.
Right.
Now, you may recall from our withdrawal that there was a payment to the stormwater district of the 2020 fees, even though you exited right at the end of 2020. This pertinent statute says that the city, the district, actually received the fees for all of 2020. So that payment of approximately $1 million after the settlement of the fact that the city had not been paying stormwater fees on city buildings to Marion County for some time ended up to be about $1 million after the debt and that payment. So that would be pledged also. Whatever's remaining from that balance would be pledged also. So funds on hand of the district only. No other funds of the city, no property taxes at all.
Can you explain for the council as well the increase?
Yes, Madam President, there was a good questions during the Finance Committee about concern about bonding now, taking care of these projects, and what capacity is there in the future. Your stormwater fees are tied to the Marion County stormwater fees, which are scheduled to increase on an annual basis. Okay, so the $1.9 to $2 million, which you're receiving this year, will increase by approximately $100,000, maybe $150,000 the following year, and the following year, and the following year, and the following year. So, that's long been scheduled by Marion County, and when you created or reestablished the Florence district, you matched that scale of fees. So no additional burden on Lawrence taxpayers, the same burden they would have had. The money just comes to you locally now, so you can make your local decisions.
So repeat that again, please.
The increase.
About the burden. Just repeat that again. There will be no.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Yeah, there's no additional burden on Lawrence taxpayers over what they would have paid to Marion County prior to your wise decision, in my opinion, to exit the Marion County district. So same impact on taxpayers, but the money now comes locally, so your locally appointed folks and your city departments can make the decision on stormwater projects, which is the only use of those funds, how stormwater projects can be addressed.
And there was only one other point I wanted to make, and I want to open it up to the rest of the counselors, but I think it's important that our constituents know that we had been paying, because they may not have been, may not have watched all the history behind this, but we had been paying for years into the Marion County stormwater and basically getting none of our projects done in Lawrence. And so by having those funds come here, we can now take care of our city and get our projects done. So I just think that that's important to point out to our constituents. What other counselors have questions? Councilor Samora.
This is just for clarification. Did you say there would be a rate or a fee increase associated with the stormwater district? And if so, what's that in real dollars? It's 2-3 cents, or what is that? I don't recall that number.
I don't have that number at my fingertips. Sri, thank you.
So Sri Vedikapala, city engineer. So just like Brian mentioned, we are mirroring Marion County's fee structure. So their fee structure was every year there will be a 5-cent increase for 1,000 square feet of impervious area. So that's exactly what we are following. So every year that 5 cents will be added to every 1,000 square feet. And they gave us a spreadsheet, and it's a simple math on the spreadsheet. We know the square feet, we just add 5 cents. So the increase that the residents would see would be the same increase they would have seen if we were part of the Marion County.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sri.
Can he stay up? I have a few questions for him if it's a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, hi.
Hi.
So let's talk about the projects.
Sure.
Are they in a hierarchy, which ones we're going to look at taking care of first versus a lower one? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, right now we have a couple of projects on hold due to the fact of supply and demand. So if we go for this bonding, how aligned are we with the projects?
So just to give you a little background on how we came up with this project, right? 2018, we did a drainage master plan, and that identified a bunch of projects. So ever since, there's been a lot more issues that we've been getting complaints on. So earlier this year, we hired a consultant to do an updated master plan, and we looked at the new complaints, all the new issues that we had in the last 4 years, because one of the reasons is that the amount of rain we've been getting every year has been dramatically higher. So the flooding has gone up. So that's how they did a big drainage master plan, looking at the complaints, driving around during rains, and that's how you came up with this list of projects. So to me, all of these projects are equally important. So once the council approves, when the council approves this bond, we're going to get into the next phase called the planning and design phase. So some of these projects would take at least an 8 to 9 months planning window. Some of this project will take 3 to 4 month planning to design. And the thing that, just like I mentioned in the finance committee, these projects are standard drainage ditches and new piping and manhole rehabs, but on a larger scale. So these are materials that from my knowledge, they are still available. These are not special materials that we are waiting on they have to wait for years to get in, because these are readily available and still continue to be readily available. Plastic pipes, RCP pipes, manholes, and drainage structures. So the goal is to start designing this and bidding this out late next. I mean, not all the projects will be bid same time, but depending on the complexity of the project, some projects will be bid out in 2023, some projects will be bid out sometime in 2021. So the goal is to start bidding these projects and then 2022. This project starting next year for the next 3 to 5 years to get it done by, in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Denny?
Yeah, I had a few questions. So thank you again. And to both of you, I want to acknowledge, I think, Mr. Bosma, you are probably one of the finest bond attorneys in the state. And Cherie, I appreciate all the work you're doing. So the questions I have aren't necessarily at all about the quality of where you're going. It is of just the finances in general. And so if we look at some of the budget numbers, I think one of the things that you mentioned in the Finance Committee was the interest and the administrative fees on the first year was about $500,000. And in total, over the 20-year period, we'll spend, in the form you gave me, at $3,900,000 approximately. That would cover one or two of the other projects. And it seems like when we get to Cherie, on your timeline, if everything went perfectly, we'll have these projects done in 2026, but we'll still have 15 years more of debt paying all these. Why wouldn't we want to just pay cash or look at alternative financing versus the bonding?
So really, there is no alternative financing. Councilor Giles brought up some creative financing that happened in a few other areas. Those were confabbed on it. Those were bond anticipation notes that were rolled into a later bond issue. Bond rates are at historic low, and I don't think anyone really anticipates that 3 or 4 years from now they will remain at that historically low rate. If you were to just spend available funds on the nearly $12 million worth of projects here, you would probably get them completed probably at the end of the 20 years because there's only so much available every year that isn't used for general maintenance. So you've got maybe $800,000 that we're using for the bonds here. Let's just say you use that toward projects. Yeah, you could get some projects done, every couple of years, but you're going to have more needs that crop up later too. So,
and the delay. 5 years, like 10 years from now, the $1.6 million project might be to be a point where it is going to cost $4 million because the whole infrastructure has failed. So right now it's already failing, but the more we wait, the more money we're going to pump into it to fix it. If we would have fixed it 10 years ago, that 1.6 would have been $500,000 worth of fix, but that didn't happen. Now we are already late in the game. The further we wait on it, the whole system is going to fall apart. And we can only do so much maintenance before we can completely redo the system, and that's what we are trying to do it here.
To your point on if we do the bonds, again, plain devil's advocate on a lot of these pieces, if we do the bonds, there's not room for several years for project number 13 or project number 14 because the maintenance on the bonds plus the maintenance on the whole system as a whole, the repair and the maintenance that you've budgeted takes up the entire stormwater budget. So where do we go if something does fail down the road, there's no room to try to do something else financially.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So we haven't done anything over the last 30 years, right? So we didn't do a single project in 30 years, and we didn't have the money for it. So we never thought about the same we didn't even think about the first and the second project, right? So, I mean, now we have a half of $800,000 that is still set aside for contingency purposes that could be used. You know, we just add it to that, and we just do a project comes up, and we just use that money to do a small project like that, which we never had it. So the 13, the 14, the 15, I get it, but the 1 to the 12 that is identified here is the priority, and we have never had money before to even do that. So just thinking beyond that, I'm not sure where we are.
Sure.
But I think that the layout of the bond that we set aside, that not use the full revenue for this bond, just because that we have money set aside for contingency purposes, for maintenance and any other contingency purposes, and the reserve we have, which none of this we never had. So I'm pretty confident that the 13th, the 14th, the 15th will be a lot lesser expensive, because we are catching the bigger ones here, and that we could be able to do it with the money we have for the maintenance or on the contingency fund.
And if I could add, Councilor Denny, don't forget about that, about $150,000 increase every year. So that 800,000 should be, these aren't exact figures, but estimates should be 950 the next year, then, 1.1 million. So there will be room for more projects, and possibly future debt instruments like this as well.
You make a good presentation. I just go back to if way to save the 3.9. Was there a conversation in your department, Cherie, about, and I know you wouldn't have been part of this, Mr. Bosma, but utilizing the American Rescue Plan dollars, utilizing some of the operational reserve? You said that one of the questions that I had in the Finance Committee was, could we use those dollars to do the planning now and then maybe issue the bonds in a year if you're able to do all those projects? Or can we take $3 or $4 million from the American Rescue Plan and get some of them started now without issuing the bonds?
That is something I did not have that conversation, just because I always thought that one American Rescue Plan could be used for a lot more. I mean, here we have a solid revenue system that could be bonded with no impact to taxpayers, no impact to the city. It's a continuous source of revenue. We are just bonding half of that to this. Whereas American Rescue Plan, it's my opinion, could be used for something that we barely need money for, which we don't have a continuous source of income or revenue. That could be used for those purposes. So whereas this is something we could use because we have a continuous source of revenue. So that's my thought process on this whole bonding.
I think I'm going to say some follow up on that, Councilor Denny. And I think the concern is, and this is no fault of yours at all. But I think the concern is that right now we know that we have a little bit over $11 million in American Rescue Funds for this city, and that, while we're making these financial decisions for the city, we really don't know the plan for those funds. And so we consider those funds as funds that could potentially be utilized because we don't know of any other use at this point. I think the concern that I heard on the Finance Committee, and the concern that I have is, those monies are available now. At least we already have one payment, and we'll get the second half at the first of the year. I mean, that's real money. And if there's another plan for them, and it relates, and there's very specific uses for that money, so it can't just be used for any old thing. If there's plans to strengthen our infrastructure by using those dollars in another area, I think it would just help if we knew that, because we're thinking about it as that $11 million is available. Why aren't we using it? Why are we bonding it all?
I can tell what I know about some of the things so I know that the loss of MVH funds, we could probably recoup $500,000 for that, but we could, get that, and I could use that as a community crossing grant match for next year's paving. So that is one use for that, or maybe more. Maybe based on what the calculation comes back from the controller, I could maybe use $1 million of that to get another $1 million from the state for road resurfacing, which is, I could use $10 million on road resurfacing, trust me, because the roads are falling apart and we are patching left and right. So, and that's one use. And I also know that utilities, we got a SWIFT fund, utilities department got a SWIFT fund for $2.5 million, which has to be matched with another $2.5 million for sanitary I&I improvements. So that could be, this $2.5 million could come from that our funds to use that match that INDAR gave us for 2.5 SWIFT funds. So I'm pretty sure there is many other projects that these are the two things I know about it that I could use, that we could use. One thing for sure is the road repaving.
May I add one item, Madam President? Just a reminder to you that most of the funds that the city deals with are fungible, in that you can move them from here to there. They can be spent for this, public safety, roads, whatever. The funds in your stormwater district can be used for only one purpose. That is stormwater projects in the city of Florence, or within the district that constitutes the city of Florence. So it can't be used for any other purpose. The board and its advisors, the city engineer, believes this is the most responsible use of those funds, to create a fund to address these 12 key priority projects now being in the next several years. And we'd appreciate your consideration of it.
The follow-on I would have with, even going with what you're talking about, Councilor Chavis, is even if we used 4 or 5 and then bond half, that's still a little bit of or cut the bonding term down because we only bond half from 20 to 10 years. I didn't know if any of those considerations or those type of financings was ever considered. And the other part is, and we've not got into it here tonight, is our minority and contractors, minority use, and women organized businesses as part of the bidding process. I think once we issue the bonds, there's no input from this council as to utilization of that. Will our civil rights ordinance be followed with the contracting process?
Yes.
There's a little bit of oversight there.
So basically, I think we are working with the, one thing that we are working with TAF right now to figure out a contract document, just like what Indianapolis have, to make 15-8, 3 and 1 as a goal in our contract document. So it's a goal, it's not a requirement, but that will be part of the review process when the bids come back in. We'll review the bids to be a lowest responsible and responsive bidder. This will also be reviewed, whether the prime contractor, if it is not a minority contractor, if they try to meet the goals, or was a project, not enough for them to meet some of the goals. So, it's in the ordinance, so it's something we just have to, we'll start enforcing it on this contract. And we have been trying to do that on our resurfacing projects, and sometimes we don't get it just because some of the projects are so small that it's,
Sure.
So, but we have been trying to do that.
Madam President?
Yes, Councilor
And
Shevlock.
Clerk? Can we, are we back on resolution 19 that had a first and second? I'm just trying to regroup here.
We're on resolution number 19 and we're having discussion.
So it had a first and a second. Okay, that's what I just want to make sure.
Yes. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you. I just have one quick question. Is there an urgency that we have to make a decision on this tonight? Is there a time frame?
Well, I guess technically no. It's our hope, because of the favorable market, that we would have the opportunity to close this bond issue before the end of the year. There's no certainty as to what the future holds, and apple's pretty ripe right at this very moment. Now, having said that, if you need to have more time, it wouldn't impact anything other than the ability to strike when the iron was hot on the market.
Thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard the question or the answer for the question as to whether we could do half and half, as Counselor Denny was suggesting. Maybe I missed that portion. What would be the advantages or disadvantages of doing maybe 5 million rather than the 12?
Yeah, you would cut half of the projects off the list.
Are there some that are higher priority that we could?
Let me clarify it real quick. Counselor Denning was suggesting that we do half in cash and bond the other half. Not cut the projects, do them all, but just pay for them using two different financing instruments.
But could we do two bonds, one immediately for 5 projects, then 5 more million, 6, 7 more million the next year?
Yes. Now, the negatives of that is you will have double the issuance costs. The issuance costs will be the same. So you're doubling that. You have no assurance. We all feel pretty good about the economy. Hopefully it stays that way. You have no assurance what the rates would be a year from now. If they'd be as favorable as they are now, but yes, it could be done. Biggest negative on that is double the issuance costs.
Yeah, because I think there's some concern when we say, and it's been mentioned a couple times, about 2 of the projects that have been recently delayed. It's not always about supply and demand, it's about manpower or human resources. So we believe that that's not going to be an issue for us, because it seems to be an issue across all industries in this climate right now.
The one project that was delayed was the Civic Plaza, and the reason it was delayed was there was a lot of special, custom-made fabrications that they couldn't find anybody to do it at this time. It's not just pipes but the concrete was available. It's just those components. So if we took it out and just built the concrete, we'll have a concrete contractor do the concrete. But it was just, we basically went back and looked at what was the reason we didn't get any bids. And the reason was the special lightings that was on those, the special benches, the special, light poles that has to be, so there was nobody.
But so Sri, don't focus on the specialty. Let's just talk about people. Just talk about general labor, right? There's a general labor shortage, period.
Yeah, but when I bid out the roadway projects, I got enough bids, 4 bids, 5 bids.
Okay. All right. That's the concern, though. So I just want to make sure, we're not focused on specialty stuff.
No,
we're just talking about people, right? Laborers.
Yeah, Madam President, if I can, I'm currently involved in about 30 public construction projects, from as large as the Terre Haute Convention Center, the small parks projects in Carmel, and there's been approximately 30, maybe 35, but there's been very active response to bids all over the place.
I know, but we're also building a new justice center, and they're struggling. So, I'm just saying, this is the concern. We see things that are happening, but we see things that are big that aren't happening, and it's a manpower issue. So I think it's a valid concern, and I think that's the concern when we talk about taking such a large number of projects and talk about bonding them, whether we're going to be sitting here 7, 8 years from now, or somebody else is going to be sitting here and we've gotten 2 projects done. That's the concern, if I'm just to simplify it.
Honestly, I can't see any possibility of that. If you have the funds available through the bond issue, the projects will be constructed, and they can't be constructed 7 years from now. They have to be constructed within the arbitrage period. So you'd have to get them done one way or the other.
That's the information. So can you talk about that real quick? So these projects must be done within a certain window?
Yeah, there's percentages that apply. 15% of the bond proceeds have to be expended within a certain period, and ultimately 85% of the bond proceeds have to be expended in a certain period, and I think that's probably 3 years. So, but it is a project by project, it's the total.
So if these projects weren't done, so 3 years from the issuance of the bonds, or 3 years?
Yes.
So the issuance would be, if we voted positive, February, perhaps?
Yeah, we'd actually like to issue them before the end of the year.
So the end of this year. So end of 2021. So by the end of 2025, by the end of 24, you have to have paid for the projects. and they have to be done.
Yes, but if you don't, you have an arbitrage. That is when you make interest off of an interest-free bond. So the interest that the city would make or the district would make would have to exceed the interest of the bonds. And I don't know if you've looked at your savings account lately, but mine's nowhere near 2.5%.
Right.
So I doubt that there would be an arbitrage issue. There may have to be a filing to prove that, but it's kind of a moot point at this point until interest rates for deposits increase to something reasonable.
So I think one of the points I made in the Finance Committee is everybody's getting the American Rescue Funds now, the school districts, small municipalities, large municipalities, so everybody's bidding out projects. It's hard to believe we can get all 12 done in 3 years. But both of you feel confident in that, or?
I don't know that they'll be completed
but paid
fully
for,
in 3 years, but. I'm sorry?
The money will be uncomfortable. We'll bring it down projects in the next 3 years.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying, I think he's asking if they'll all be
We're talking about
within 3
work
years.
done, not POs issued.
I think, it won't be completed, but, the projects will be up and running in the next 3 years.
So that's 12 separate crews running.
It might be, like I told Councilor Denny, we will not be bidding every single project as a single project. Usually what happens is to get the best prices, we just combine a project to a decent size. So we don't just bid out a $300,000 project. We bid out we design it in a package, right? Okay. And we bid it out as a $2 million project. So it's a one crew. It might be only 3 big projects going out or 4 big projects going out. So 4 different crews, because contractors like to see bigger contracts. They want to see like some good work, and that's how we get good pricing. So it might be only 4 different crews. And the way we looked at the project is, projects don't need any land acquisition, so projects don't need any environmental documentation. So those are all the time-consuming things in the planning and design stages. So none of these projects would need any of that.
Thank you.
Any other counselors?
Madam President.
Yes, Counselor Wells.
Thank you. My apologies if this has already been asked, but the Stormwater Board, if this bond is approved, or to go that way, but the Stormwater Board has full authority over the approval on these projects, or does the projects have to be then turned back to the council, or?
No, they're with the Stormwater District Board. Yeah.
And they can't change those?
They cannot change. The bond issue process doesn't allow you to change project number 10 to something else that's not on the list. You can't do that. You have to spend the money on the projects that are described in the bond resolution, which is the same description that is attached to your resolution.
But the Stormwater Board is the only deciding factor, or?
No, we're deciding, because once we approve this.
Yeah, you're deciding.
Right.
For each project.
This resolution decides the use of the funds.
So Councilor Wells, each project will be bid through a public bidding process. So we have to follow the Indiana bidding law. So this will be sent out to bidders. This will be advertised in the Indy Star or the newspaper, in our website, and the bids will be publicly opened here, just like we bid the resurfacing project or any other project. So the bids, this will be an actual bid process. So bids will be opened, will be read loud, and the bid will be reviewed for minority participation, for inconsistencies, and the bid will be taken to the Stormwater Board with a recommendation for who the lowest bidder is based on what the law says, just like what we do on Board of Works.
It is the Stormwater Board has the final say on each project.
No, this resolution, when we vote on these 12, that is it, if we pass it.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's where I was going with that. Thank you.
One last question.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you. I don't think I heard what the interest rate is right now on a bond.
Bob Swintz, who may be back here still with London Witty, the financial advisors indicated he believes it'll be between 2.5 and 3%. We just closed an issue last week that was 2.6. So it will be in that general range, 2.5 to 3%.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other counselors?
I just want to make a closing comment, no question. And I don't dispute the merit of the projects. I think all 12 of these projects need to be completed and are needed for the city, and nor with the quality of the work that you've done, Mr. Bosma. I think that if we were issuing bonds, you've put together a fabulous package. I just feel personally that we could pay for these utilizing other funds or existing funds and something else other than a bond issue. So in my vote, that's the rationale behind my vote tonight.
Any other counselors? Okay. All right, I think we've had our discussion and our debate on this. We have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote. Counselor Denning.
So,
Counselor Chevlot.
yes.
You have to be on video.
Hold on. Hold on. You know, I came from this world of technology, so I figured it. So audio, yes. Video, yes.
Counselor Denning.
No.
Counselor Giles.
No.
Counselor Wells.
No.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield.
No.
Counselor Freeman.
No.
Counselor Chavis, yes.
Split.
3-5,
Oh, I thought you were
didn't pass.
Okay, it did not pass, 3-5. Okay, next on the agenda, new business. Vote on mayoral veto of ordinance number 12, 2021. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve, how would I word this? That we override the veto on ordinance number 12.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
So a yes vote overrides the veto and no.
yeah, so I am, are they able to participate in the vote? Okay. Yep. So we're still under a public emergency, so the votes of our two remote counselors will count as long as they're on video. Okay? So a yes vote is to override, a no vote is to not override. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Counselor Denning.
Yes.
Counselor Giles.
Yes.
Counselor Wells.
Yes.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Counselor Freeman.
Yes.
Counselor Chevlot.
No.
Counselor Chavis. Yes. Veto has been,
Did you call Whitfield?
it was 8-1,
7.
7-1. I just want Lauren to be here, I think. 7-1, and the veto has been overridden. Next on the agenda is vote on mayoral veto of resolution number 18, 2021. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to have a vote on the mayoral veto of resolution number 18, 2021.
Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Rusamoroff. Any discussion?
Madam
Yes, Counselor Chevlot.
President, I just want to make sure that I heard this. So this is on resolution number 18. Is this a vote on mayoral veto of yes to veto or no to not veto? I'm sorry.
So it's yes to override the veto?
Okay.
And no, not to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we need to clarify what resolution number 18 is, please?
I don't have the exact title in front of me, do you, Kathy? It is the resolution regarding the intention to fund bonus for all employees with
5%.
COVID relief funds.
5% increase.
Bonus.
Yes. Okay, we got a motion and second. Roll call vote. Counselor Denny.
Yes.
Counselor Giles.
Yes.
Counselor Wells.
Yes.
Counselor Rusamoroff.
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Counselor Freeman.
Yes.
Counselor Chevlot.
Yes.
Counselor Chavis. Yes. So that was 8-0. Next, we have approval of a contract with TAF for minority diversity representation that will be assigned to finance. Approval of contract with TAF for legal representation that will be assigned to finance. Next, we have the rezoning hearing, 2021-ZON-01, located at 7302 East 56th Street, Florence, Indiana. We have Mr. Caldron from representing the Metropolitan School District of Florence Township.
Zoning, give me just 1 minute here.
And we'll give our clerk just one moment. It's the rezoning of approximately 20.38 acres from the D3 residential zoning district to the SU2 special use zoning district for school use, including new athletic fields.
Just swear everybody in.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You're strong.
Our COVID-proof. Organized them and tell me whenever you're ready. Okay. Okay, so all who intend to testify or believe that they may testify should stand and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Be seated.
Thank you. Petitioner has 10 minutes to present his case.
We'll go very quickly then. Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis, representing the Metropolitan School District of Florence Township. We have a proposal for you tonight that is the first rezoning case under the new law. And as you read into the record, this is a request to rezone a little more than 20 acres of property that's located immediately to the north of Florence Central. That property is currently zoned D3 residential, meaning that it could be developed theoretically for single family or duplex type of housing. The school district has a special designation in the zoning ordinance called SU2, Special Use 2, strictly for school use. So this is the zoning map kind of indicating the property. This is affectionately also known as the Boy Scout property. The Boy Scouts actually own over 40 acres, and the school district is under contract to purchase 20, which is the southern 20 acres. And that's the subject for this evening. So what the SU2 district does is allows for an initial rezoning, i.e. what we call a zoning map change, to facilitate future development for school purposes. That's only the first step. The SU2 requires that a second process, a development plan approval process, be implemented when actual development occurs. So even though we're going to show you a conceptual plan tonight, you're not voting on the plan. We're just sharing with you the intent of the school district for this property, just to be transparent. But you're not approving a plan. The school district will have to come back with detailed plans for secondary approval. The guidelines that apply for school district equate to commercial C1, think office buildings. So setbacks and buffer yards and things like that are tied to the SU2 district through the application as guidelines from the C1 standards of the zoning ordinance. What's important to note is that the comprehensive plan, as mentioned in the consultant's report to you, recommends this quadrant as being regional special use. And looking at the Marion County Comprehensive Plan, regional special use contemplates large campuses for high schools. So I'm going to go to the concept plan. This is kind of a wide view shot. You can obviously see the school campus building along with the project site identified, 56th Street being to the south. This property is accessed through the school campus, and it is adjacent and just beyond the outreach of Kaido Drive, which lies to the west. This is a closer view. The plan for this property is to relocate and facilitate athletic fields, which is a pretty passive use. In your staff report, it talks about them being accessory uses to the school. There's no, other than bleacher type improvements, concessions, things like that, no buildings. So you can see that in this iteration, the thought is to have the athletic fields more on the western 2/3 of the property, and preserving and using the wooded area as part of science lab for the school district. The staff recommendation, your staffing consultant, Matt O'Rourke, found and recommends that the criteria for consideration and rezoning was met. You look at a number of different things. If you consider the existing zoning classifications, SU2 to the south, the comprehensive plan, the fact that this acreage is large enough to ostensibly meet all the standards that might be imparted, it would render this as a favorable recommendation for you to decide. The report, notably, does note that there are other considerations, and we can't really avoid those. We're just not going to get into all the details tonight. We know, for example, that with trees, there are certain types of trees in the ordinance that require special consideration in terms of what you do to mitigate their removal. If you have to remove them, how you replace them. They're called heritage trees. There are intermittent and a couple of existing streams that we have to deal with. We have consultants in place, but all of those details will be regulated either through other permitting requirements and will be dealt with in full detail as part of the plan approval process. In talking to at least one of the neighbors and kind of reading between the lines from the comments we had seen from other neighbors, we know that tree preservation is important. And even though we're not doing a development plan tonight, we did proffer to you a tree preservation commitment. And in that tree preservation commitment, we say that, listen, as part of the rezoning, we're going to guarantee that we're going to save a pretty good number of trees. And we've identified those on Exhibit B. But once we get into the actual development plan, we'll provide a detailed tree preservation plan. Inventory, the whole 9 yards. We'll detail what we'll use to protect trees to be saved, the exact acreage, all of that kind of stuff. But we wanted to put on the record for tonight for both the council's consideration as well as the neighbors that we are committed to do the right thing. The school district, of course, is a place where neighbors' children attend. So it's very important for us to be a good neighbor as well, and we think that should help you in your decision making. I would be remiss to say, and I don't know if this works or not, in talking with one of the neighbors, and can you all hear me? We've agreed to extend the tree preservation area, and I'll amend the exhibit before we report it, a little bit to the west. You can see it in orange crosshatched. So we will fix that. We just received word with one of the neighbors tonight. So hopefully this satisfies the neighbors as far as that is concerned. So we hope that we've earned your positive vote tonight. This is brand new. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I want to turn the microphone over to Dr. Sean Smith to talk a little bit from the school's perspective.
Dr. Smith, if you can please step forward, welcome. If you could please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
For the record, Dr. Sean Smith, Superintendent of Schools for the Metropolitan School District of Lawrence Township, 6501 Sunnyside Road here in Lawrence. And honored to speak with you, Madam President, and members of the Common Council. I just want to simply state that this project is historic, as normally when we come before you it's for historic reasons. And so we are very honored back in 2019 to win a public referendum, capital referendum, to renovate the Lawrence Central Campus. And as you can see, currently that's what we're doing, executing the plan for the future of our children. As a part of it, our athletic upgrades and fields, which is certainly a part of our community and our tradition. We're going to ask for your approval for this project because it is historic what we're trying to do. So it's a part of the overall comprehensive project for the 2,300 students on our campus. Today, I'm honored to be here not only as the school superintendent, but I represent our Board of Education. I know in the virtual space, we have our board president, Mr. Reginald McGregor, and in the audience, we have our vice president, Ms. Wendy Mustin, who is also here. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Roger Smith. If you don't want to say anything and you want to defer your time, that is fine. I'm just going down the list, okay? Go ahead.
I'd like to have the Boy Scout represented.
And sir, what's your name?
Good evening, Madam President and Councilors. My name is Joe Wiltrout. I'm the President and CEO of the Crossroads of America Council. We're located at 7125 Fall Creek Road North here in Indianapolis. And we are here to just say, hey, we're the owner of the property. We have been long-standing collaborative partners with the school system, with the city, and we are all about the kids and in the kid business, and we want to continue to collaborate and enhance the environment in our city, as well as the environment surrounding our camp. We feel that Camp Belzer is the front door to scouting here in central Indiana. So we are totally supportive of this collaboration and hope that you would vote in favor of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wendy Mustin.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mustin. I'm Vice President of the Metropolitan School District Florence Townships School Board. Thank you very much, Madam President, and council members for accepting my wish that you would accept the
Ms. Munston, I'm sorry, can you just go back and state your address for the record, please?
6501 Sunnyside.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. It is an honor to serve the families and the students in our school district. This project will be state-of-the-art and will entice families to come to Lawrence Township, to have their students here in the township, to be competitive throughout the state and in the metropolitan region. The turf will be beautiful. We have always tried in our building projects to be as sensitive to neighbors as we possibly can be, to reiterate with
Joe Caldron.
Joe, as Joe said, with the surrounding of the property, so that there are trees, there are hills, you won't be impeding the neighbors. We know that our Lawrence Township is one of the few school systems in Marion County that is growing right now. And one of the reasons we're growing is because of the improvements to our property. It's only one of the reasons, but it's very important. Many of our kids get scholarships each year, athletic scholarships, and go on to higher education because of their skills, and this will only improve their chances. And I think if any of you have seen the current soccer fields, it's almost off the campus, and they do need to be improved. They really do need to be improved, and we are committed to maintaining the buffer zones, and I appreciate you listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here on behalf of for or petitioner? Do we have anyone else? Okay. Move right along. Next, remonstrators have, I'll definitely give you all some more time. So you have at least 10 minutes to present your opposition or objections. Looks like we have a Craig Flandermeyer. Oh, you're, okay. And I just have to go through these lists because I don't know who's who. Matthew O'Rourke. Okay. Charles Knapp. If you could step forward, sir, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Charles Knapp. My wife and I live at 5728 Wallingwood Drive. She would be here, but she's got a budget meeting tomorrow at Butler University, so she's busy with money again. So anyway, I did file an objection letter. I don't know if y'all ended up with a copy of that or not. It sounds like a lot of the concerns we had will be addressed in future meetings. I want to make sure that those do become public meetings, because we are, and Representative Giles, we're in your district. Our neighborhood is under attack. Lights all night long at the school. The sound from the stadium is louder in our neighborhood than it is in the stadium. And I'm sure that the Lawrence administrators for the school district need to know that something needs to be done. And our concerns are that once this is developed, the lights are going to be worse, the sound is going to be worse, You know, this is our neighborhood, and I realize none of the people that got up here before me to speak live in that neighborhood or anywhere close to that neighborhood. So they're not affected by what's going to happen. I want to make sure that, you know, one of the things, and we've talked a little bit, we want to make sure that drainage concerns are taken consideration of, because the last thing that y'all did at Lawrence Central, now Wallingwood floods at the joint between Wallingwood and Boy Scout Road. A heavy rain and we get a foot of water at that intersection. We're lucky the homes aren't flooding yet. So what else? The trees, I hope those will be addressed. But the noise has been horrible in our neighborhood. Also, I want to make sure, and again, it sounds like the Indiana Department of Natural Resources will be contacted about trees and about wildlife in the area. Drainage really needs to be taken a good look at, because it does affect us, and at some point will affect our property values. So I mean, we're real happy with the neighborhood and the school, except for noise and water and light pollution. So I'm not real sure what else. The letter, it sounds like the east side of the site, which is shown as undeveloped, is going to become a science lab for the school, which is great. The last one got taken out at the last expansion of the school, which was a horrible loss. Y'all have a retention pond. I don't know if the drainage is going to work. That retention pond will be able to handle the additional drainage, or if that's going to be enlarged or what. But there's a lot of details, and I think the objection that I've got is that there just weren't a whole lot of details on the proposal. And I've been down that road before. I'm an architect. I've been down that road before where there's, you know, we're going to do this, and then it's going to be beautiful, and then it's actually done, and it's horrible for the neighbors. And I just want assurances that that's not going to happen again to our neighborhood.
Thank you, sir.
Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Daniel Rapp. Good evening, sir. If you can just state your name and address for the record.
Daniel E. Rapp, 5718 Wallingwood Drive. I assume that you all have read my objection letter, and I will simply ask the question to you. Do you have any questions to me about what I put into it? Was it clear?
No, this is just your opportunity to share your concerns, sir. I think it's any counselors need any clarification?
No, I mean, we're not supposed to speak back. I just want I read it, but I wanted to meet the person behind it.
Yeah, so you go ahead and you state your position for the record, sir.
Okay, from what I've heard so far tonight, that the plan that I got to see of the two soccer stadiums and the ball diamond, that those are plans only in sand, that once this rezoning is approved, the Florence Township High School can do anything to that property that they want to. They don't have to build soccer fields, which they've already got at least one that's lit. They've already got ball fields. I know of 3 of them. So I'm concerned that what they say tonight to get the rezoning approved probably will not be taking place when the time comes. There's no telling what they're going to do. Their credibility, as far as I'm concerned, do the right thing, is not from the community's point of view. It is from their point of view only. So, and I'll just talk about their plan. They show these 2 soccer fields, a ball diamond, and 2 parking lots that are already on their property that they own. My question is, how are you going to get cars to those 2 parking lots? One of them is not even paved yet. But there is a problem with public access roads to that piece of property of 20 acres that is sort of hemmed in, because there is no road coming from Wallingwood, and there is no public road coming from the other side. So with that, I said my piece, I'm against the ideal because of lack of planning on their part of presenting a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Tracy Ashcraft. Good evening.
Tracy Ashcraft, 5880 Boy Scout Road. I'm just here to kind of just reinforce the concern that we have as neighbors, one being that I disagree with the speakers for the school that they take the neighbors into consideration, because they do not. I've lived there for 16 years. My husband's lived there for a lot longer than that. And the noise has never been as bad as it has been for the last at least 2 years. And from what I understand, they have a sound system that they're quite proud of, because it's so loud that I was in my house watching television and I could hear the words to the song. I could tell you the song that was being played, and it was all day, and it happened several times. And so the noise is just already it's disruptive, even if you're in your home, not even including when you're outside your home. So then we're taking away trees, the buffer, so we're gonna have less of a buffer. And I'm not on Wallingwood, so I'm a bit ways from the school considering some of the other people. So I can't imagine what the noise is like if you are on Wallingwood. And I know my husband has actually gone over there as a Lawrence police officer and asked them to turn the noise down. And the security person just shook his head and said, yeah, good luck. So no one's complying. And then not even to say, the cannons that they set off at the, football games. They're so disruptive to my animals, I have to drug them on a Friday night if the football game is local. So I'm not opposed to schools trying to improve themselves, but I think there's other options. I just don't want to see more of our, woods and our buffer taken away. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see the first name, but the last name's Courtney.
Scott, Courtney.
Sir, if you could just.
I forgot to sign in. I want to speak also.
Okay, I'll get you. Courtney, your last name? Scott. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. If you could just state your full name and address for the record, sir.
Scott Courtney, 5936 Boy Scout Road. I share probably the longest property boundary with the Boy Scout property. My concerns are two or three main items. Tree preservation. When I first saw the plan, that's my number one issue. I will say I understand there's dialogue and willingness to maybe meet on that issue, which isn't very important to me. I'm the one that put together the orange exhibit. I would like to see that tree preservation to the maximum extent possible. I do echo some of the other previous concerns about noise and light pollution. I think that is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed. I'm not necessarily against the proposal. I just want it to be done responsibly. I am concerned. Now, the zoning attorney for the school said there is a secondary process to this, which I understand that with the site development approval. Is that a public hearing?
All of our meetings are public.
Okay. So as long as we have an opportunity to speak at the time for the site plan approval.
It's not a hearing.
Oh, okay.
You can attend, and I would encourage you to continue to have dialogue with Mr. Caldron as well.
That's where I'm going with this. And the third thing is stormwater runoff. Scout Branch Creek runs significantly through my property. I've been there 6 years. I've noticed significant erosion already, more than I thought would be there. I mean, there's always erosion. But that is a concern. If a lot of this is non-permeable surface area, I get that, but I'd like to see more details on that as well. In short, I would like to know a lot more about the site plan commitments, and that there is a commitment for what is built there, and it's not something entirely different. Those are my concerns. Again, I'm not necessarily against it, but if those concerns can be addressed, that would be a huge issue with me, and I wouldn't like the loss of a public forum to have those concerns that are discussed.
Talk at a
Thank you, sir. Not at that one. Not at that one. I'll talk to him offline. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Alice Hayes. No? Okay. And I'm sorry, Lena, can you pronounce your last name? Criselli. If you could step forward, please, and state your name and address for the record. Thank you. I didn't want to get it wrong.
My name's Lena Criselli. I live at 11519 Half Mile Drive. And I'm in Lawrence, and I've been in Lawrence for over 26 years now. And I don't live off of Boy Scout Road, but I love animals, and to take these trees, these streams, and woods out of this area, these animals are going to end up more in our yards than they already are, not to mention on the streets dead. And my heart breaks every time I see one. A lot of these people that live on Boy Scout Road, they have deer in their yard all the time. I go down Boy Scout Road, and I have gone down Boy Scout Road since I've been here. When I found this road, the trees, I'm always looking for wildlife because I grew up in the woods in Pennsylvania. And I have grandchildren in the school system, but everybody's for the kids, but nobody thinks about what these animals are going through. I bought my house in Spring Run because of the woods. Yeah, I love to see the deer, the raccoons, coyote. I've seen coyote, fox, possum. We've seen everything. And with the woods that are out there and the streams, you can take those trees and streams away, and they're going to end up, like I said, in people's yards. I'd like for the kids to have more space to do their sports, but don't put them there. That's all I ask. Put them somewhere else. There's a lot of soccer fields out in the parks that they could play. So that's, I had to put my point in because everybody's about the schools and the trees. It's who's in the trees? Who's in the woods?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Mayer. You did make it on the list.
Evidently I did. Good evening. My name's Michael Meyer. I live at 5975 Boy Scout Road. And I oppose the rezoning for the following concerns. It's going to destroy the woods and the animal life. I'm also concerned about how it's going to affect the value of the homes along Boy Scout Road. I don't want to lose the natural beauty of Boy Scout Road, which it's known for throughout Lawrence and throughout other places in Indianapolis. I also want to point out that this will create a lot more foot traffic and car traffic along Boy Scout Road that it does not need and cannot handle. The traffic along Boy Scout Road is already very horrible, and it's dangerous to get your mail or bring your trash cans up. I just have to say no to the destruction of the forest and the wildlife, and I just strongly oppose this rezoning and the project. There's plenty of soccer fields behind the Finance Center. There's, other soccer fields that will be available for this. And I just want to point out that if this property was donated correctly, we wouldn't even be here for this rezoning by Francis Belzer. So Thank you.
Thank you. I think last we have, I think it's, I don't know if it's Diana or Dion McKee. Step forward, ma'am, and just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Diane McKee. I live at 5924 Boy Scout Road. I'm definitely against this whole thing. One thing that's not clear to me is where will the athletes and their families for these soccer fields, I can see the blue lines, but I don't know where they're going to get access to this. Do we know that?
Well, so we'll wait until you finish making your points,
Okay.
and then we'll ask.
Maybe you can address that.
Yes.
Because I understand it to be, they are going to make access at the curve on Boy Scout Road. If that's true, that's going to be definitely death for many people. There's already severe accidents there all the time. As Scott said about traffic, he has a lot of property damage from that. The other thing that's been mentioned is, of course, extra traffic on Boy Scout Road, which is awful, but the noise is very loud. I don't know if they need to turn down their loudspeakers or what. It's just like, you can't have a conversation. And I don't live right next to it, but I sure live close enough. I don't want any more noise. I like a peace. That's why we live here on this road. It's peaceful. You have nature. You have trees. And you can enjoy it. But you can't enjoy it with all that. So I can't see why you can't get these kids, if it has to be done, to 21 soccer fields at Lawrence Park. Why do we have to take down trees for 4 soccer fields? Or 2, whatever you're going to do. So that's my complaint. So I would like to know where the proposed entrance is.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. Oh, great. Okay. So next we have city planning and zoning staff comments.
Good evening, council members. My name is Renee Raffla. I'm the executive assistant to the Department of Public Works. My home address is 7414 East 47th Street. We provided a report to you that you all should have gotten copies of, that American Structure Point prepared for us. We worked very, very closely with Mayoral going through this report and preparing it for you guys. Tried to look at every aspect of the project. And our conclusion was that it is the opinion of the city and of the planner who reviewed it that the submitted petition does meet the requirements for the petition of a rezoning. The subject site would meet or exceed the minimum standards established by the City of Indianapolis and Marion County Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance for an SU2 district. The rezoning of the property to the SU2 zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future land use as described by the zoning code. I do want to assure everyone that the permitting process would have to be followed. They're going to have to submit a heritage tree study and have a plan for every single tree that comes down on that property for replacing it if it meets the heritage tree definition and standards. So for like every one tree, if it's a certain diameter, they have to plant 2 more. And they have to address the streams that are running through there. They're going to have a study for the natural habitat. If the Indiana bat is nesting there, they have to address that. All of those check boxes will have to be done before this project even breaks ground. We will look at the drainage. We will look at every aspect of the project to make sure that it meets all building codes and all zoning IDEM, DNR, all of it. They'll have to check all those boxes. Approving the zoning tonight is not approving the project. It's saying that this can be used by the school for them to take the next steps in developing this project. Did you have any questions from the city or our report that we submitted to you guys?
Any counselors have any questions?
I have a
And this is specific to the city or this report. Go right ahead, Councilor Rusamora.
It's specific to the plan that was presented. It's just a general question. It indicates that the soccer field and the baseball field are lighted, but the other soccer field is not. Is that correct, or was that assumption made?
I don't recall, Joe, was the...
That is correct.
Yeah, the one closest to the neighborhood is not lit. If my memory serves, it's the one along Cato that would be the lit one. So you're going to have that tree buffer, and we're going to look at all of that. We're going to look at the lighting. There are very specific codes in the Marion County Zoning Code about how bright those lights can be, how they have to be shielded, and that has to be contained within the property. So all those check boxes are going to be done before I issue any permits for them to start work.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Can I ask one more?
Follow up for Councilor Rusamora, Councilor
Yes.
Giles, Councilor Wells.
What is the procedure for getting the plan approval? Who will be making that plan approval?
Maria, we will. That'll come back to us, right?
No, ma'am. You'll approve the zoning, and the Department of Public Works will review and approve the plan. What we do, they'll also have to get an improvement location permit from Marion County. So it's a two-step process. When they submit plans to us, we send out for a professional consultant to look at the drainage. We will also have a professional consultant look at the development plan overall to make sure that they're meeting the heritage tree, which is Marion County's responsibility too. So you're going to have two agencies looking at all of those issues.
So Renee, I think what Councilor Rusamora was getting at, and I'm sorry for speaking out of turn, but what she was getting at is the council has an opportunity that if there are any conditions to us approving this, that we can make our approval based on those conditions.
Do you mean commitments?
Commitments, I'm sorry, commitments. So that's what I think Councilor Rusamora was getting at.
You can ask in your commitments that you be presented with a plan prior to permits being released. I mean, that's within your authority.
Yep.
If you choose to do that. But if you choose to, even if you don't do that, between Marion County zoning and the city of Florence, all of those issues that have been brought before you and that you've all been, everyone's so concerned about, all of those will be addressed. And if they don't meet one requirement, the project can't go further. So if they can't address the drainage issue, if they can't do the heritage, if they can't keep enough trees, then they can't move the project forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a point of privilege. Is it possible to get the PowerPoint taken off the screen so we can see?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, if we could do that, just in case the other counselors have questions. And then Councilor Giles has the floor and Councilor Wells.
So I wanted to kind of reiterate and kind of advocate for the concerns of the constituents in my district. I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I do think this is the feeling of many of our neighbors and feeling of myself as a neighbor and not as a councilman. I am sure, and it's kind of that the proper coding and technical stuff to the Indiana code was handled every time the school district does a remodel or anything. I think everybody does anything professional. But here's what I know. From the day that I ran for office, people told me that their street flooded due to you guys' work that you had done in the past. So I'm sure there was diligence done, but at the end of the day, people got water going places that they don't supposed to go. So we have a lack of confidence that, no different than my own neighborhood, since I've been a councilman, we've had the city come out, say they fix it. They did something, but it didn't fix it. So here is my challenge, and I'm going to say this publicly. You got your referendum, you got your money, you have your opportunity to build and improve the ground. We also, if we're going to, can we take this as an opportunity as we're looking at using structure point and all of these folks that are going to look at it to say, hey, there's a problem that was presented 15 years ago or however long the date was, I don't have this accurate information, of we created a problem. Now we're going in and we're doing some more work, drainage. Is this an opportunity to do what's adequate for the new project, but as well as correct something that was done in the past so that folks can meet their concern? And so I don't know how to exactly facilitate that, but I want to put that on the record. I believe that that's what I interpreted from the constituents, which would be good faith and an improvement, not only to the school, but to the entire neighborhood and community.
I didn't hear a question.
Madam President?
No, it's not a question. It's a concern, and it's something that why we want commitments and why folks are not as confident to say, hey, yeah, you got all your professionals, people. And so what I want to know is, what can we do as a city as we're hiring these consultants to say, I know you're meeting the Indiana code, but can you go above and beyond and correct things so that everybody feels good about the project and moves forward? Because I don't think the folks are upset about the project. They just want to, maybe they can get a little something and get a little things fixed for their community and their neighborhood and their street while everybody's doing something. Because ultimately, it's their tax dollars that you got for the school.
Councilor Giles, one moment. I'm calling for a brief recess of 3 minutes. We're going to recess for 3 minutes, and then we're going to resume, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for the brief recess. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so any more questions?
I have a quick question, Madam Chair. On page 6, one of the site condition analysis you have is minimum street frontage 50 feet, and then the proposal is 656 feet along Cato Drive. Does this property have any other frontage on any other street within there? So Cato Drive is the only street that has
It would
frontage.
either have to be accessed via Cato Drive or off of the Lawrence Central compound itself.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Council. Oh, we still have, our petitioner has 10 minutes if we're done with Ms.
If you
Rafala.
guys are done with me, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I think he has 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, petitioner has 5 minutes.
Yeah. Rebuttal, right?
Yes. Yep.
Well, I probably won't be getting these minutes done real fast.
It's okay.
We're going to the holiday too, so.
Yeah.
I'm Roger Smith, Lawrence Township Schools, 6501 Sunnyside Road. I wanted to address some questions that our community had on the access to this property. The only access that we'll have for those 3 fields are off the north end of our parking lot on our current property. So there's no other road access to this property from Cato or from any other property.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask.
Want
want to continue to talk about the lights, the sound, and the drainage. We do have a new system in there, and it is loud at times. However, as we move forward, everything is, we try to position it in such a way that it is away from our nearest neighbors. Light-wise as well, with the new lighting, LED lighting, the direction of that lighting is positioned to least impact outside the area being lit. So we try to do the best we can in making sure that we follow those guidelines and steps, working under the permits, and also making sure, the drainage, that was new to us tonight about the drainage and why. Part of that could have been before any of us were in these positions, but we would definitely like to look into it more so that as we do make improvements, we are not impacting any of our neighbors. And we've tried to do that in all of our projects, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, President Chavis. Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian. I'd just like to reemphasize that again, tonight, we are seeking 20 out of the 40 acres. I think there's a lot of misinformation that all the woods are being taken down and access is coming from the south. Not true. D3, developable, SU2. SU2 requires a separate plan approval, and that process requires significant details. We are completely aware of the other issues that are involved. We can't move forward without resolving those, whether they be at the county level, the City of Florence level, IDEM, or Army Corps of Engineers. So all of those things have to be satisfied before we can do anything in terms of turning dirt and creating a project. So we put in the tree preservation commitment based upon what we heard. A lot of people have received not one, but two notices tonight. And we just live in a day and age where something gets put out there, rumored, oh, they're going to come in through Boy Scout Road and they're going to tear down all the trees, and that spreads without being checked. So we want to assure you tonight that our intentions are exactly what we said. We just can't give you a detailed site plan to approve because that's a secondary stage. Those plans will be incredibly detailed. And we are certainly willing to work with you in terms of what you think you need to see to be satisfied that the school district's intentions are appropriate for the entire city and for our neighbors immediately adjoining. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Madam President, if I may. Joe, do you know, does Department of Natural Resources, I would imagine they do, on a 20-acre piece of property like this, would they offer some kind of a study, an impact study on what that would do to the wildlife by clearing 2/3 of it?
We have engaged a consultant that has actually looked into what our obligations are as to any endangered species. So DNR, in this case, I don't believe has a lot of jurisdiction over the project. However, IDEM, Department of Environmental Management, does. Army Corps does because of the streams. And certainly both the Marion County Zoning Ordinance has its own stream protection corridor. There's only really one named stream here, and it doesn't show up as a Category 1. It's Scout Branch. So we're not at the point where we've determined exactly, but we're shoving everything away from Scout Branch. There's some intermittent streams, meaning that, or ephemeral,
Right.
meaning that they're not wet all the time, that, you know, we have to address with others, IDEM in the Army Corps.
Have any of those been done yet? Any of these studies?
We've engaged a consultant, and we are in the process of engaging with IDEM and the Army Corps.
Okay.
In terms of their permitting requirements, which are outside of this. We have to satisfy those permit requirements, 404 and 401 permits, so.
Listening to the neighbors, one of the concerns that I hear, or two of the concerns, is the foremost is the sound pollution, and then of course the light pollution. I'm just curious, would there be enough trees to the east of this project site to minimize the sound and the light pollution to this neighborhood, or to these neighbors? And, excuse me, has that study been done, or
Well, I
do we
don't
have
know
any
if that's
idea?
a study. I think it's a matter of once plans are implemented, then light fixtures that are designed for the fields, obviously, and then whatever sound amplification there is, if any. I don't know how much there would be. I think the current issue is whatever happened recently with the football stadium. The
Right.
football stadium is more exposed. It's a little farther away, but it's not surrounded by heavy woods. So this would I mean, now that we're hearing about it, we'll have to factor in, but I'm not sure, you know, how to address that this evening. There's no study per se that has been done. Some of this information is new to us as the school district this evening.
Well, this is not in my district, but it is in Councilor Giles's district, but I wasn't aware of the noise. And I would think that the school would want to be a good neighbor. And when we have a man going in as a Lawrence policeman asking for the noise to be, or the volume to be turned down, and, you know, and he walks away not getting it done, that seems, you know.
I don't know. I can only speak to my experience, which is just representing him in this case and obviously others. But, you know, when I send out notices and I got one email requesting information, which I provided back at the end of October, and then I received direct contact from Mr. Courtney, whom I know because he's in the real estate business, and he mentioned his concerns, and I said, I'll ask about a tree preservation commitment, which we did. We put in. So I can't react readily in terms of saying, oh, we've done a decibel study, or, you know, without people advising me as counsel for the school district, or without the school district being made aware, oh, can you turn off the lights by such PM, or, you know, this is a problem for us noise-wise. I wasn't advised of that until this evening. So I can only tell you, I mean, the school district is the community. So of course, they want to make sure that their closest community members are satisfied that the school's best interest mirrors that of the community.
Okay, so, hold on.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes for petitioner rebuttal.
I know.
We have extended that, we actually doubled it. So now we're going to have remonstrators. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone have anything to say?
Well, I'd like to address the the school and the council repeatedly saying that they want to be good neighbors, but they have not been good neighbors. And I'm sure that, and I'm glad that the superintendent is here, because then I can tell him right directly to you that the noise is extremely loud. We're used to band noise. My daughter went to school there. She was in the band. We're used to all the sports noise, but we are not used to noise that is a radio playing pop music to the point that I can hear it in my house and I can tell you what song is being sung. And it was all day, one particular day. And there's been many days that it's played for at least a few hours. So, and I can't address the lights because I'm too far away for that, but I can say by neighbors, you have not been good neighbors. You're not taking us into consideration, and you apparently feel like you've met all the requirements that you feel like you need to be met or meet, and there just doesn't seem like you have any waiver on that, or you're really taking us into consideration.
Okay. Oh, you want to come up, sir? We still got a few minutes left in
I have
rebuttal.
to echo all of Tracy's comments, and I have to speak on the notices. I have never received any notice of any of this project or rezoning, as of none of my neighbors that live along Boy Scout Road, because I've spoke to them. So I don't know what notices were sent out, but we have never received anything on it. So, and I have to reiterate, no matter how many trees you put up on these fields, if I can hear the noise from Florence Central, and I live all the way at 5975 Boy Scout Road, there is a boatload of trees between Lawrence Central High School and my house, and I can still hear the noise inside my house all night Friday night, and most times all day Saturday. And no matter how many trees you put up along there, it's still not going to block the noise. Thank you.
Thank you. There's still about another minute and a half or so on rebuttal. Did anyone else? Okay. Counsel? Yeah, I'm going to have the council attorney. Want this?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilors, my recommendation at this point, particularly given that petitioners were not aware of some of the concerns, is that you consider a motion to continue this until your December 6th meeting to give the petitioners an opportunity to speak with neighbors, perhaps develop additional commitments for your consideration that would address their concerns. One of, to the extent that it's helpful, here are the concerns that I heard, and I don't have a solution, nor am I suggesting you prejudge what it should be, but I heard whether there could be any additional beyond what was already discussed, increase in the tree line and the number of trees remaining, whether specific noise commitments could be made, which could include just not having a PA system at this location, or commitments that that PA system would not operate during certain times of the evening or night. I will note on this that the issue of the noise coming from the stadium is really a separate issue from this particular rezoning request, and it is perhaps something that the council should consider. I looked very quickly at the existing Lawrence noise ordinance. It exempts public gatherings. Perhaps that should be reviewed and reconsidered to try to address some of the community concerns. It does seem to be an outdated noise ordinance. Lighting, whether there are commitments that petitioner is willing to make beyond what just the city code would require. For instance, do these have to be lit? Will the lights turn off at a certain time? A commitment, and I know this would be in the site plan, that access from will only be from the high school's existing parking lot and not any nearby streets. A commitment to deal with any infrastructure investments that are needed on the site. Of course, if we have larger, and we know we have larger stormwater issues in Lawrence, but you know, people that develop a site can do some things to help with drainage on that site. You know, what is the plan for that? And really, I think what I hear the council wanting is site plan approval and wanting this site plan to come back before the council and a commitment that that will happen so that you know what the final plan is. So those are my suggestions for petitioner to consider. I will let you know that the notices don't come from the council. The notices come from petitioners, sir, so I'm not sure of the total list.
I know a lot more people would be here if they would have received notices.
Right, and I think it's just for adjacent property is what the law requires, and it didn't sound like your property was adjacent, but it's also published in the paper.
So we'll talk about that later. So is there anything else about the commitments? Okay, so Councilor Giles.
I'm just not sure if this is the proper time to talk to the petitioners about commitments or.
So, no, so we'd like to continue this until December 6th.
So you have that conversation between now and the next.
Yes.
Before you vote.
We're asking.
So is there a motion? No, petitioner's time is already gone, rebuttal's already happened. So is there a motion?
I can make a motion to continue this to the December 6th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Denny?
No.
Counselor Giles? We're just a motion to continue to December 6th.
Yes.
Counselor Wells?
Yes.
Counselor Russo-Moroff?
Yes.
Counselor Whitfield?
Yes.
Counselor Freeman?
Yes.
Counselor Chavis, yes. Motion carries to continue 6-1.
Counselor Denny voted no.
I was the one.
6-1.
Counselor Chevlot has.
We're adjourned.
Yeah, Sheila's second.